My name is Farah. I am Farah Knits on Ravelry and Farah in the Round on Instagram with periods in between each word. And I am going to try a podcast. Welcome. I've decided to call it Knitting My Shit Together. And I'll explain more of that later. But yeah, welcome to episode 1. I don't know how many there will be. We'll see. I wanted to find a way to connect with the knitting and fiber arts community. And I guess I'll explain the title now. And also merge, I hear a lot of people talking about, so for example, I listened to the Grocery Girls podcast, and a couple times Jody mentioned having anxiety, and then she mentioned a whole bunch of people writing in and being like, oh my gosh, thank you for talking about it. And I'm a person who has mental illnesses and considers myself neurodiverse, neuroatypical, I don't know. There's a million words for it now. But there's a lot of stigma around it. And so many people, she said, reached out to her and was like, thank you for talking about it. That it just got me thinking like, I know we don't really talk about it and that it can be hard to talk about and there's a stigma around it. I know that just from my own life experience, that's how I've experienced it. But so I went and looked on Ravelry and there are some groups. There's one called One Stitch at a Time. That seems to be the most active, but even that isn't super active and many haven't posted for a long time, which I guess maybe is what happens when you get a whole bunch of depressed people together in a group. Or there's just avenues where people are meeting and talking that I don't know about, which is also entirely possible. So it's been a really difficult year for me, and I experienced probably like the most severe depressive episode I ever have, and ended up in the hospital for a few days, and now am in a recovery program, DBT therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, if anyone wants to know what that is. But part of that for me is knitting. And I have been knitting for like 12 years, but really avidly lately, during this journey. And I kind of want people to be able to talk about it. Like, I want to be able to talk about it because here's the thing. If I had heart disease or diabetes or I don't know what else, I don't know what it's like to have those illnesses, but I feel like maybe I would be more okay talking about it, or people might be more okay talking to me about it. I don't know. I've never lived that experience, but I know people don't really know what to say to me about mental health issues a lot of the time. So I want to talk about it and merge like that and my love of knitting and yarn. And because mental illness can be really isolating in a way, like I'm not as ecstatic about being out and about right now as I've always been. And so it's also a way for me to connect with other people. Yeah. So I'm going to share kind of a mental health moment, in my podcast that I do, and just share some resources. And I just want to say, I don't know if I need to do a disclaimer, but I'm not a licensed therapist at all. Do not take this as any kind of mental health advice. Like if you need mental health advice or think you are experiencing a mental health crisis, get help, get licensed professional help. And you could call 911 if you're in immediate danger. You can, and I'll talk about some resources too later in this. I'm just a person with mental illnesses who wants to share my knitting and life experience, because that's not all of who I am, but it's part of who I am. And it's a part of who I am that I would love if we talked about more, and I can talk about it and yarn. So hence the title of my podcast, Knitting My Shit Together. It's really therapeutic. And people talk about knitting being therapeutic, but then we don't talk much more about it. So yeah. So that's a theme of this podcast. In terms of how often I'm going to record, I don't know. I also have ADHD. And so I kind of have discovered, one thing I was thinking about is, at first I started doing show notes. And so one thing I'm working through and learning how to do in my recovery process is not be an all or nothing thinker and a perfectionist, because that's something my brain will go to because it helps me feel like I have control, which you don't, FYI. And so what I do is, I'll be like, I have to do all the things and it has to be perfect. And then I would like, basically how it would play out if I went down this path is I would do all the show notes and all the things, and it would have to be perfect, and I'd do 2 episodes. And then I would be like, I can't do all the things, and overwhelmed, and then I would never do it again. And that is kind of typically what has been my life pattern. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to try a new pattern. So all of it to say, I'm not going to do show notes. I'll probably put a couple links in for things that I think are cool and important to me, but I am a really dedicated Raveler. Like, I put all my projects with my information in Ravelry. So I'm kind of like, if you really want to see and know details more, find links to what I'm knitting, it's in my Ravelry page in my notebook. I keep my projects page pretty up to date. So yes, I'm going to share links for the mental health moment and resources. I'm going to share links for some local makers who I really like. Oh, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I should say. I love living here. I was born and raised here. I live 5 blocks from Stephen B., which I know a lot of people know who he is, which, it's both a good and a bad thing. It's an awesome store, but it's not as easy on the budget. It's just 5 blocks away. So yeah, that's kind of my local yarn shop, but I also like a place in St. Paul called the Yarnery, which is just right across the Mississippi River from us. St. Paul, for those of you who might not know, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities metro area. So where was I going with all of that? Yeah, I live in Minneapolis. I'm a student. I didn't finish my undergraduate degree the first time around, so I went back to college at the age of 42, and I'm majoring in English and minoring in creative writing. What else? And so knitting, I knit a ton in class, and it's really funny. I had knitting written, so I get academic accommodations because of my mental health issues, and I got knitting written in as an accommodation because so far none of my professors have cared at all. I go to the University of Minnesota, so it's a big university, and they don't seem to mind at all about students knitting. But I thought, in case I ever had a professor who did, look at that. I noticed this light is like right over my head. Speaking of ADHD modes. Okay, maybe I can go like that. Does that block it? I don't know. We'll just deal with it this first time. Embracing imperfection. So, none of my professors have really minded, but I thought if I ever get a professor who does, it would be good to have it in my accommodations because it really helps me focus. And I talked about, it's kind of like knitting is the ultimate fidget toy. So I used to always have like fidget toys and spinners and things, but I get bored with them really easily because a fidget spinner, you kind of figure out, your brain does pretty quickly. So for me anyway. So yeah. Knitting, it's like the same motions, but I can always be doing a different pattern. It's always a new thing. And so it's enough to keep that part of my brain engaged so that I can focus on lectures and learning and participating in class discussion and not having my mind wander all the places. So yeah, oh, and I have a bullet journal. I love bullet journaling, but I put show notes in here. So I am going to be peeking down at them and looking because if I don't write stuff down, I won't remember the stuff. So I have it written down and I will be looking down and referencing it. And yeah, let's see what else. So yeah, I've been knitting for like 12 years. I tried to teach myself years and years ago, like pre-YouTube even, and it resulted in, so I went and I had like the old metal straight needles and like some acrylic yarn, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I don't really remember what video it was. It was like, 15 years ago maybe. And I just remember, I don't even remember how the cast on was. Like, they did not teach long tail cast on. It was more like just wrapping loops around the needle and then starting to try to knit into them. And all I know is it culminated in my partner walking into the room that I was in, and me just sitting there with 2 knitting needles and yarn everywhere and tears coming down my face, and they just like slowly backed out of the room without saying a word. Like, okay, so yeah, that was my first attempt. And then I went to a yarn store and took knitting lessons and loved it. And my first project was this really ugly acrylic vest. It was gray and like really dense fabric because I was knitting so tightly. It was really ugly. And I gave it to somebody as a gift who I'm not in touch with anymore. And I remember she wore it out and about. And now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I hope she got rid of that vest because that was terrible. So yeah, let's see, what else in my notes? So yeah, so many people like me use knitting and the fiber arts as a coping method in their recovery. Yeah, I talked about that already. I talked about Jody from the Grocery Girls mentioning anxiety and people having a response, and so me being like, hey, let's talk about it. So yeah, I experience anxiety and depression and ADHD, and I'm in dialectical behavior therapy, which you can Google if you want. It's basically dialectical behavior therapy. What it basically is if your brain, growing up, never learned how to regulate your emotions, you're kind of like reparenting your brain. So it's really skills-based, evidence-based therapeutic program. So it's like a year long, and it includes 2.5 hours of group therapy for me every week and an hour every week of individual therapy. And I get to knit through my group therapy too, so that's fun. I found it really, really helpful. You have to use it. It's probably like, I've never been into anything like AA, but from what I do understand, it's kind of like it works if you use it. And same with DBT, like you learn all these skills and they will work if you use them, but using them in the beginning is really, really hard. Like I'm just starting to have moments where some of the skills are starting to get easier for me. They're never not intentional. They're just getting easier. So that's nice. And there's still hard moments, but you learn how to cope. So yeah, that's the therapy I'm doing. I'll maybe talk about that more later in future podcasts. So yeah, I want there to be more of these. And so to that end, I'm not going to do extensive show notes and I'm not going to have it be perfect. I don't know how much editing I'll even do. Because that could prevent me from doing it more in the future. I don't know. I'm going to upload this into iMovie, play around, put it on YouTube, see what happens. Okay, so let's talk about knitting and yarn. Yay! So I thought we would start with finished objects, and I'll just talk about some I've had recently. And this is a scarf I knit years ago. It's like, I can't even remember the name of the pattern, but it's like a really simple little shawl, and I just tied it in the back. I have to find ways to tie my cowls because I don't like doing a knot. I saw those little leather things you can get on Etsy, but I really want to get one, but I want to get like a thinner one that can wrap around a couple times. I don't know. I might explore some of those, but I love this. I wear it when the weather's warmer because I like sometimes having a little scarf or something around my neck. And I know that I knit it out of Cascade sock yarn years and years ago. So this is several years old. I can't even remember the name of the pattern anymore, but it's nice. I enjoy it. Okay, what? This is like, I put together, I took my notes and then put together a whole basket bin of stuff I wanted to talk about in here. So for my finished objects. So, okay, one is So I found that Perfect yarn, the Regia Perfect yarn that does the 2 matching pairs of socks. And I did a pair for myself. I saw this colorway on Webs and ordered it online and love it. So I'm really exploring socks lately. Like I've never really explored sock construction, and I just kind of always did a traditional heel flap, gusset, top down, all of that. And I'm exploring new things. So this was my first time. I did toe up and I used Judy's Magic Cast On, and I used a tutorial video from the Sockmatician. You should look it up if you want to learn Judy's Magic Cast On. I liked his video best because he teaches you how to do it in a way so that on that one needle, you don't need to knit into the back loop. He teaches you how to do it so that it sets the stitches right on the needle so you don't have to turn them and knit through the back loop. And I really like that. And my cat might come. I have a cat. We have a couple cats. One hates me. But this is Hamilton, and he is kind of my BFF and sits with me up here all the time. Hey, Hamilton, say hi. That's Hamilton, and he's my boy, and he'll just randomly come sit on my lap. So yeah. Okay, so anyway, I did toe-up cast-on sock-metition pattern, and I also tried the Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I got the pattern for that and tried it and love it. I did a template of my foot. So I tried it first without doing a template. I don't know why. And it didn't work. So I ripped back and then redid it with the template, and it fit perfectly. And I have kind of gone, I mean, I said I was doing sock exploration. I've kind of gone template crazy. These are templates of all the people, many of the people in my family, like my brother, my dad, my mom, my youngest child, my partner, a friend. Yeah, all these people. So, and my own. So yeah, one thing I'm learning, I'm trying to get down like my recipe for socks for my feet because I want to knit a whole bunch more of them. I love socks. Sock knitting is just my thing right now. And, these were, I went up to 64 stitches, but I think for my foot, I really need 56. Hi, Hamilton. Again, I said he's just going to pop in wherever he wants. I think I should really do 56 stitches cast on, not 64, and I think it would fit better. These fit fine. I wore them for a day out and about. They'll be fine, especially when I'm wearing my Doc Martens, kind of keep them up. But right now they're a little stretched out too because I need to wash them. But from now on, I'm going to do my next pair in 56 stitches and see how they fit. So that's one of my finished objects. And it's just like a generic vanilla pattern. I just kind of followed. There's a link on my Ravelry page to a pattern I used, and I did a Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern separate. So yeah. Okay, my next finished object is for my youngest. They are going to college in the fall. Yay! And I want to knit them a box of socks and a sweater to take with them. So that's kind of one of my goals for the summer. And so I asked them, and they said they wanted a mix of ankle socks, short socks, and regular crew socks with a longer cuff. So I'm going to kind of do a mishmash. I was thinking maybe 6 pairs of each. I don't know. We'll see how far I get this summer. So this is the first pair I knit for them. And so I'm not going to use really fancy, expensive yarn for their socks because they're going to college. They're going to be using a college dorm washer and dryer. They're going to lose them. When they're a little older, they'll get fancier sock yarn. So yeah. So this is the first pair I did, just a pair of ankle socks. This is that Patton's yarn that's really popular. I love this. Like, it's a little splitty, but I love the colorway, kind of the rainbow, as you can see. Like, yeah, I love rainbows. And so I love this colorway. It's a little splitty and whatever, but yeah, that's fine. And so I forget the name of it. It's like Patton's Croy. You can get it at Michael's. You can get it at like Joann. This one is called, let me find the label in my basket of stuff. It's Blue Striped Rag is the name of the colorway, and I love it. And I used Fish Lips Kiss Heel, and I used the leftover yarn from this. So I keep all my scraps mostly. So I'll show you by my bed. So this is my jar of leftovers. And this is for stuff that's like more than 100 yards that I really like. I keep thinking I'm going to do something with this, and I am. And so like part of one of the things I'm doing is using it for heels, toes, that kind of stuff on socks, because a lot of it's sock weight. And so I went through and I weigh it all, and I put tags and figure out the yardage. So yeah, so that's my second finished object. Okay, next one. The name of this pattern is called Bubby's Appa-Socks. My little brother, his nickname's Bubby. That's, I don't know, it's just what we call him in my family. Little brother, it's like a term of endearment for a little brother. And he, every couple of years, I knit him a pair of socks, but I knit it out of like Cascade 220 Superwash. This is in the navy colorway, and I can't remember what the green is called. It's in my Ravelry. And I kind of improve on them every couple of years. So he's outside a lot in the winter, and so I knit him a pair of thick, hardy kind of wool socks to get him through, and he loves them. He is so knit-worthy. He like wears the crap out of them. And the past couple he's worn holes in the heels, and I could darn them, but darning seems so futzy to me. It just feels very overwhelming to my brain. So there's a neurodiversity, like ADHD moment. I don't know. I tried it once, but just even looking at it and all the mess just felt like, God, I can't do it. And it just, like, I probably totally could do it, but it just feels really overwhelming to me. And so, I kind of realized like the fish lips kiss heel, you could theoretically make as an afterthought heel. Like technically, if this wears a hole in it, I could re-knit the fish lips kiss heel and Kitchener stitch one side down. I might try that. And I'm going to explore a real afterthought heel too. That's another exploration I'm doing, but that I'll talk about later. So every year I'm trying to get these to be a little bit better, like I said. So this year, I call them Appa-Socks because I only want to buy 2 balls of yarn, and so I alternate colors, and I have leftovers too, so I could probably, yeah, and so it's kind of fun. It's become like a little weird tradition he and I do, and I make up the patterns. So I did his foot template this year, did a fish lips kiss heel, and one thing he struggled with in years past is them slipping down, so I was like, why don't I do twisted rib? Because that might really pull it in more. I added ribbing last time, but I did 2x2 regular rib, and he said it helped. And so I was kind of like, what if I did a 1x1 twisted rib? And now normally I think twisted rib is you knit through the back loop and purl like regular, but I, for some reason, knit and purled through the back loop, which purling through the back loop is kind of a pain in the butt, but by the time I realized I could just knit through the front loop and purl regular, I was like 1 sock done and committed, so I just had to go for it. So yeah, that's these, they're done, and I'm giving him them tomorrow. So he'll have his new pair, and I'm kind of excited to get them to him. Okay, my final finished object is a sweater I knit for myself. I love Isabel Kramer. I would knit anything she, like, I've looked at her page and I'm like, I will knit everything she designs. I love all of her designs. And so the first one of hers that I knit was the Draylen pullover. So I, years ago, bought a sweater's worth of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes tweed in this colorway. I was having a tweedy thing, and my budget was a little bit tighter then, and so Knit Picks felt more affordable. I don't know that I'll ever knit another sweater's worth in Wool of the Andes. It's a little itchy, but I'll build up a tolerance to it once it gets cold enough or wear long sleeves. But yeah, this is my Draylen pullover. So as you can see, like on the front, it kind of comes down, garter stitch comes down in a V, and then it's stockinette on the front. It's raglan knit from the top down. I didn't swatch for this. That's another thing I'm gonna start doing now. I'll talk about that in a minute when I talk about works in progress. But it fits. I really like it. I actually did a gauge swatch halfway through, and I was a little bit off. I was knitting a little bit bigger than I should have, but it worked out. It fits totally fine. And I really like this sweater, and I can't wait till it's starting to warm up, so I can't wait till some cooler days, and in the fall, I'm going to totally wear this. And I am gonna knit more of her patterns for sure. So yeah, that's my last finished object. Okay, and I have pictures of all these things on Ravelry. So let's see, what shall we do? Works in progress. Okay, this is gonna be fun. So the first thing I wanna talk about is I am knitting a a pair of socks for both my mom and dad for Father's Day and Mother's Day this year. So I'm working on my mom's right now. Look at this. I love how this is coming out. So this yarn is from Urban Girl Yarns. She did a pop-up shop at Stephen B. and during like the Minnesota yarn shop hop. And so I saw it on his Instagram. And so I went there specifically to buy yarn from her for my mom's Mother's Day socks. So she has several colorways that she names after important women. And so she has like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg colorway. This is Admiral Grace Hopper, is the name of this colorway. And you can look Admiral Grace Hopper up on Wikipedia. She was an admiral in the Navy. She was a computer programmer. She, made breakthroughs in computer programming and computer science that led to the development of the COBOL computer language. I don't know a ton about programming, but she did some really cool stuff. So yeah, this yarn is so soft. It's going to be amazing. These socks. I'm going to do a Fish Lips Kiss heel. I'm using the pattern. Let me look at my notes. Where is it? Okay. The pattern is called Slip Stitch Lines. It's on my notebook in Ravelry. The designer is, this is going to be me attempting French, La Maison de Saba, which I know is like the house of Saba. Saba's house is probably how it would translate. I don't know. Yeah. So Urban Girl Yarns is out of Richmond, Virginia. They have a shop on Etsy. I have them tagged under the yarn on my Ravelry page if you want to follow the links. And you should really go check out her yarn and get it because this is really soft. And she had all kinds of colorways. I just got this one. So my mom is really, we have really different styles and tastes, my mom and I. She is really into, you know, like that HGTV people, Chip and Joanna Gaines. My mom's really into them. So when I look for yarn for her socks, I was like, what would Joanna Gaines wear? And I decided this was the closest thing to what Joanna Gaines might wear that Urban Girl Yarns had. And so, yeah, I really am happy with how it's knitting up. I'm happy with the yarn. It's really soft and luscious. And I'm happy with the socks. I'm about to the point, I think I have maybe like one more pattern repeat. It's a 4-row pattern repeat to go before I put in the heel and then knit up the cuff. And the second one will take me no time at all. And I'll have plenty of yarn and leftovers to go in my fishbowl. Yay. Okay. So that's one work in progress. A second is, let's see, I'm doing more socks for my child's box of socks. I'm going to grab it. I have to reach over and grab it. Okay. This is more sock exploration for me. So I wanted to try knitting 2 at a time because I'd never done that. Again, this is about me exploring. And I wanted to try a true afterthought heel where I cut one in. So I thought, oh, I'll do them both with one pair of socks. So I cast on, this is more of the Patton's Croy. This colorway is called Turquoise Stripes. I don't love knitting 2 socks at a time. I mean, I finished the toe decreases or increases and I'm not loving it because part of what I love about knitting socks is how transportable they are. I knit, if I don't bike, I take public transit. I either bike, walk, or public transit. And I knit on the train and bus all the time. And in class, like that's one thing that's great about socks is they're small, I can take them anywhere and just work on them. And doing 2 at a time just feels cumbersome to me. It takes away some of that for me. I don't mind that it takes twice as long because I get you're getting 2 socks. I just don't like the 2 balls of yarn. And so I think what I'm going to do is actually tomorrow, because I'm taking the train to the airport to rent a car to go to my mom and dad's for Easter. So I think what I'm going to do is put one of these on some scrap yarn tonight and just knit one, but I am going to do the afterthought heel, try a true afterthought heel on this one. And I'm just going to knit them individually because I've kind of already determined at this point that I don't love knitting 2 at a time. So this will be the second pair of socks for the box of socks. That's my second work in progress. My third is, this is like, I'm loving this work in progress. Okay. This is one of my favorite whips. So, and there's a story behind this one. I'm trying brioche. This is a shawl by Katrine Schneider. Links are in Ravelry, and it's called Tassels in Amsterdam. And it's a brioche shawl. So it looks small, but it's gonna like, look at how much it's gonna block out. It's gonna be like, so I am using Wool and Boon yarn. I got this, it was on sale. It was like 20% off at Stephen B, this colorway was, and I saw it and it just stood out to me because I like the blues, but I like it's speckled. I don't know if you can see it, but there's little speckles. And I saw it and I was like, oh, and then I saw it was 20% off and I was like, I'm gonna buy a sweater's worth. So I got like 1,200 yards, but then I saw this shawl pattern and it was like, or I'm gonna make a giant brioche shawl with it. So it's called Tassels in Amsterdam because when you're done, you make a whole bunch of tassels and put them all along one edge. You can see it on the project page and the pattern page in Ravelry. I am going to do my tassels in some of my scrap yarn from my bowl, and I've decided to go with this color. I think this is leftover Malabrigo sock, I think, in this yellow, but I thought those would be really pretty together as the tassels for this. So this is going to be my tassels. I love the Wool and Boon. I wish that it was possible for you all to reach through my phone and feel the smushy wonderfulness of this yarn done in brioche. It's so comfy. I cannot wait to finish this and wear it in the fall. It'll be too hot here in the summer, so it's something I'll be wearing in the fall. Yeah, but I'm really excited about it. I'm loving brioche. I'm getting addicted to it. It's so fun to do. And so this is the story. I started knitting it having never done brioche and, made a few mistakes, but it was kind of would pass the gallop test. Like nobody would spot it flying by. So I was like, I'm just going to keep going. And then I dropped some stitches and so one of my things is I hate reading directions. Directions feel overwhelming to me. I'd rather just try and figure stuff out. So obviously, if you look in between the stitches, picking up brioche stitches, dropped brioche is much more complicated than a regular stockinette stitch. So I kind of just made it up and it wasn't perfect, but I was like, whatever, it's fine. And I just kept knitting. And then, so it starts out at the bottom, it's increasing, and then there's a lace section, and then you go back to a body section, and I think there'll be 2 more lace sections, but I had gotten past the first lace section, and I was just a little ways past it, and then I was wearing my Apple Watch, and I have it on like a leather cuffband that I got at Etsy because I like them, and basically, long story short, the band caught on this and pulled out like 20 stitches. They all dropped. And I was like, oh my God. So I panicked. I started picking up stitches and then I started winging it and like being like, I think this string might go here. And I was like switching stitches and making random yarn overs that I thought I was supposed to do. And yeah. And then I decided, okay, if there's any hope of me saving this at this point, I am going to watch a video on how to do this. Like somebody has to have made a video. So I went and I looked and there are several. So I watched a video on how to pick up brioche stitch and I tried it and did it. I totally knew how to do it. But at the point that I saw that video, I'd already jacked everything up so much, which is putting things places when I was trying to figure it out. It's like I couldn't even properly pick up the stitches because I'd kind of messed everything up. And I'm a person like, I don't need my knitting to be perfect, obviously. I just, it was kind of like beyond repairable, it would not pass. Look at that little hair. It was beyond the galloping pony test. It wouldn't have passed it. So I was just kind of like, okay, I am going to start. So I thought about it. What should I do? What should I do? And then I decided, like, give yourself a break, show yourself some grace, which is the thing I struggle with. Like, you're learning this totally new skill and it's not going to go perfectly. And it's a process. And like, that wasn't wasted effort. Everything you've done up until now was not wasted effort. You learned things like you learned how to do brioche. You did brioche increases, which everybody says is really hard, and I'm not having a hard time with at all. And you learned how now to properly pick up a dropped stitch. So I made the decision to rip it all out and start over. And I'm so glad I did, because there's a few little things in here, but they're not as severe as the first time around, the mistakes. And I have dropped a stitch and I was able to pick it up the right way. And so I'm really loving this now. I'm kind of in my groove. I made it past that first lace section again. I'm on like repeat 10 out of the 31 I have to do for the main body. And kind of knitting right along. What I'm trying to do is bring socks and smaller projects with me to go, and then knit on this when I'm at home. And I love it. So I'm really happy. Love the yarn, love the pattern. Cannot wait until it's done. And I'm definitely knitting more brioche. In fact, I went on Ravelry and just looked up brioche under patterns and started finding all these and favoriting them because it's so addictive and I love it. Okay, so that's another work in progress. That might be my last work in progress actually right now. Let me flip back to my notes. Oh, one more thing. And this is gonna be an ongoing long-term work in project. So remember I said I'm saving my scrap yarn that's 100 yards or more. Things that are less than that, I have gathered up, and I'm doing a coziest memories blanket with the little mitered squares, I think is what they're called. And so I'm in the middle of one right now. I have 3 so far. I'm not going to try and plan out color. This is just going to be a crazy kind of quilt. You can see I'm in the middle of knitting one right now. I'm just going to have fun and make like a really awesome, funky patchwork blanket quilt. But here's the dilemma. I got all these done and I think I'm going to keep these. I might do a whole row of these maybe, or like a square of them to incorporate, like do a 3x3. But I found a brioche version of this. And when I saw it, like brioche is so smushy and cozy, I was like, ooh, this changes everything. So I might do one square regular and attach it and make the rest of the blanket in the brioche. And if you're wondering where the brioche one is, I favorited it. And it's in I have bundles in my favorites on Ravelry, and it's in my scraps bundle if you want to go look. Because I can't remember who it's by or whatever. And I just found it the other night. So I'll finish the one square I'm working on, maybe do a few more normal, maybe just start doing the brioche ones and see how big they are and attach these somehow or unknit them. I don't know. I haven't decided, but I definitely want to try one of the brioche squares and see how I like it and then make decisions about this going forward. But again, it's like a scrap yarn fun blanket, so I'm not doing a color theme. I'm not going to go like buy minis to do it. It's just going to be a fun using up my scrap yarn and have a cool blanket at the end thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing with that. So those are all my works in progress. Let's see. Oh, now we're going to do the mental health moment. Ta-da! So I'm going to kind of do it in between works in progress and acquisitions. And so this is mental health moment where I share a resource. So there is a website you should all go to called makeitokay.org. And Make It Okay is actually local. I think started in Minnesota, the Twin Cities metro area, but its resources are available anywhere. And I don't know if any of you have heard the podcast, The Hysterical or Hilarious World of Depression. Their Make It Okay is a sponsor of that podcast and affiliated somehow, I think. I haven't figured it all out. But they have tons of resources online. And I thought I'd just share like what to say, blah, 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 blah. And I'll go about those in future podcasts. But today I just want to talk about kind of some basics. And so their whole goal is to end stigma around mental illness. And so I went to the page, a mental illness is and is not and can be caused by. They're just breaking down like, what is mental illness? And so I thought for my first episode, we would just quick talk about that. And I'd quick read the bullet points because they're short and abbreviated. And yeah. Okay. So a mental illness is a medical condition disrupting a person's thinking, feeling, mood, ability to relate to others, and daily functioning. Common. Mental illness is common. 1 in 4 people will develop a mental illness in their lifetime. And treatable. Most mental illnesses can be treated effectively with medication, therapy, diet, exercise, and support. Recovery is possible. It totally is. And I just want to say this too. I don't know if people are going to watch this at all or comment, but I know one debate that happens a lot. I want us all to be well and be in recovery, whatever that looks like for us. I just want people to find what they need to be well. So for example, for me, I do DBT therapy and I take medications. And the medications, they don't fix everything. They're not like a panacea, like I take these pills and voila, everything is amazing. That's not the case. But taking them helps me do the work I need to do. Like I couldn't do DBT therapy if I wasn't on my antidepressant because I wouldn't be able to leave my house really. They give me the drive and motivation to take care of myself. And so that's how I use them. Now I have a friend who treats his OCD through exercise. He's able to manage it and maintain it. And I'm like, hurrah for him. I just think we get all weird and attack each other. And I don't think we need to. Like medication, that's the thing. Mental illness is different for everybody. Everybody experiences it differently. Everybody's brains are different. That's the whole point of neurodiversity is we're all different. Medications affect people differently. They have different results. So like if you're a person who has a mental illness that you're able to manage and treat with yoga or exercise, I'm like, good for you. Like that's amazing. That's awesome. I'm not going to tear that down. If you're a person who needs 5 prescriptions, multiple hospitalizations, all the things, good for you. Like you're fighting the fight and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing the best you can. And I'm not going to judge any of what you're doing. We're all just doing the best we can. That's one of the premises of DBT too. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. So, yeah, I just want to say that, like, I don't want, if anybody does watch this and comment, I don't want there to be like a war about medication to not medicate. Like some people take medication, some people don't, and that's okay. Like as long as a person is safe to themselves and other people around them and doing what they can, whatever they need to do is what they need to do. And I'm okay with that. So yeah. All right. The next thing on the Make It Okay website, a mental illness is not imaginary. Mental illnesses are very real and very common. It's not something to get over. Mental illnesses cannot be willed away. Okay. If mental illness could be willed away, trust me, I would have. If there was a way I could have been like, I'm just going to will this away, I would have done it. It would be a lot easier than doing all the other stuff. It's not a character flaw. Mental illnesses are medical conditions that do not define us. And like I said in the beginning, it's not all of who I am. It's part of who I am. And it's just the part of who I am that I'm merging with Yarn for this podcast because I want us to be able to talk about it. Okay, last point. A mental illness can be caused by trauma. Sometimes traumatic events can play a role in triggering a mental illness. Truth. Chemical imbalance. Chemical or biochemical changes in the brain can be factors. Genetics. Some mental illnesses get passed along from one generation to the next. Yes, they do. And environment. Exposure to toxins, illnesses, drugs, or alcohol can affect the developing brain in utero. So it's not one thing or the other. Like, people are like, do you think mental illnesses are genes? Do you think I think it's a combination of a lot of different factors, and it's different for everybody. It's just not one thing or another, all or nothing kind of thing. So yeah, makeitokay.org is where you can find that list. And I'll put a link to this page that I specifically talked about, or this section on Make It Okay, in the show notes. And I'll put show notes. I'm not going to do a whole separate thing. I'm just going to put them in the square block under this on YouTube for the few things I do link. And this will be one of the things I link. I'm also going to put a link to some crisis hotlines in case anybody's in a place where they need help. And what's cool is if you go scroll down further down the page, it will talk about different mental health conditions and break them down and talk about what they are. So yeah, I encourage you to check that out and give that a read. All right. That's our mental health moment. And now we will go on to acquisitions. Not a ton, but a few things I want to talk about. I really want to, well, first let's talk about this. So I have a friend who has size 15 feet, I think. I'll show you his template, his foot template. It is insane. Okay, hold on. And I'll compare it to another one for you so you get a sense. Okay. This is his foot template. I'll compare it to mine. I'll hold up mine. Hold on. If mine is in here. Here's mine. So I am a women's size 9 to 9.5. I don't have tiny feet. I don't have massive feet, but they're definitely not small either. And his are huge. So I think I measured from one end to the other, 29.4 centimeters is the length of his foot. And I'm going to knit him a pair of socks because through my depressive episode when I was in the hospital, he came and saw me, and he's just an amazing friend. And I want to do something kind for him. And he has ginormous feet, and he needs hand knit socks. Hi, Hamilton. Hamilton's back. So I went to Stephen B to get yarn, and I brought him with me, and he's so easy to shop for. I brought him with me, and I said, there's only one condition about me knitting these. It needs to be self-striping yarn, because if I'm going to knit socks this huge, they need to be self-striping. So that self-striping yarn is fun to me. It keeps my interest, like, ooh, what's going to happen next? How's it going to look? And he saw this and right away was like, I like that. And I was like, okay. And so this is what he chose. I love it. And it's by Unique. It's Unique fingering. It's 100% worsted. It doesn't have nylon in it, which I'm wondering about. But I feel like maybe, they make it a sock yarn. So I'm like, hopefully it will be fine. If not, eventually down the road, if they wear quickly, I'll either try and repair them or knit him another pair with a little bit of nylon down the road. So this is, hey, Hamilton, don't do that. Hamilton's eating the little garland. Don't, here. Okay, so yardage though. This is 435 yards. I wasn't sure if I would be able to get a pair out of one skein, so I bought two. And what I'm gonna do is I can either return this because I'm not going to unwrap it. I'm just going to cake up one and see how far I get. I'll knit the first sock and then weigh it, see if I'm going to have enough yardage with one skein. And then if I do, I am either going to knit another pair of socks out of this, the other skein, because I do like this. I think it's really pretty yarn. Or I'll just exchange this for something else that I want at Stephen B. I'm not sure. We'll see. Hopefully I can do it in one skein. If not, then it'll do two, and I'll have tons of leftovers to do other things with. But I'm going to do, I haven't picked a pattern yet for his, but I'm going to do a fish lips kiss heel. Yeah. Oh, and I just realized I have one more finished object that I didn't talk about because I don't have it to show because I gave it already, but I'll just quick share. So I joined Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. I joined her Handmade Sock Society 2 club for this year, which is every 2 months you get a new sock pattern coming out. And the first pattern for the year was called the Shell Cottage Socks. And maybe I'll insert a picture here if I figure out how to do that of what they ended up in being. If not, you can go to my Ravelry page. I did the Shell Cottage socks. They were gorgeous, the pattern, and it was yarn from my deep, deep stash that I found that I'd lost the label to. I don't even know what it was. I think it might have been Malabrigo sock, but it was in this really deep plum that just so happens to be one of my best friend's favorite colors. And so I knit her those for her birthday because it was her birthday last week. And so she loved them. She'd never been given a pair of hand knit socks, and it was so fun to give them to her. It was awesome. And I'm really looking forward. And the second pattern has been released already. And I'll talk about that in an upcoming episode because I think I'm going to knit socks for myself with that second pattern. But it's really fun having these come in the mail. Or come in your Ravelry library every couple months. It's kind of fun and something to look forward to and exciting. And I think Helen Stewart designs incredible socks. They're lovely. And so I'm looking forward to that this year as a little treat for myself. Okay. Another acquisition. So the last two things I want to show are from local makers, from Minnesota makers. Cause I really want to find, I'm a Minnesota girl. And so I want to show stuff from Minnesota. So this is from a indie dyer, Forest Fiber Arts. This is a merino nylon 75/25, 463 yards. And you can find her yarn at www.forestfiberarts.com. And this is one I'm going to put a link to in the show notes. I got this colorway. It's called Lake Life, which Minnesota, we're like the land of 10,000 lakes, which by the way, we really have like 14,000. But look at this. So I don't know if you can see, but it's speckled and lovely and so soft. This is, I believe I got the 4-ply. Yep, 4-ply sock. I am going to knit my Father's Day socks out of this Lake Life colorway. Isn't that nice? And I think, so I have a plan. I might design a pair of socks for my dad. And I have there's a story behind it, which I'll show later. I haven't even started swatching. I just have some ideas. And so if I end up in doing that, I will show it on a future podcast. I've never made a pattern before, but I just had this idea and I'm like, I would really like to do this. So I might try. Why not? That's like what this is about. It's just like trying something and seeing. So yeah, a Minnesota maker, Forest Fiber Arts. I went to her website. I had the hardest time choosing which colorway to pick because there were so many that I loved. And I even messaged her and I was like, if you ever start a subscription thing, let me know because I will completely sign up for it. I just loved all the colors she had. I was looking at it today, like, should I get another skein? But I have a ton of stuff in my queue and so I'm going to wait. And I have a few other yarns coming, so I'm going to wait until I get more from her, but I will be getting more from her and I really like her yarn. So yeah, Forest Fiber Arts. Let's see. The last acquisition I wanted, I have two things actually. I'm sure many of you have heard of a sock ruler. I had seen them. These are amazing. So like for my best friend, I just had her shoe size, but not a foot template for her. And I decided to follow the pattern, which had a heel flap, gusset, all of that. This was so nice to be able to measure out and like stick this, so it was knit cuff down, and stick this in the heel and see if I was getting the right measurements. And she said they fit perfectly. And I think a lot of it was because this was so handy. I wasn't feeling antsy and like hating getting out my tape measure. So this is the sock ruler. You can get one at sockruler.com. I think they sell them at Webs and just different places. Yarn shops have them. I love it because I'm kind of in a socky place. So yeah. Finally, the last thing I want to share. So I realized I needed project bags, and I need sturdy project bags because I bike and bus commute and take transit all the time. So there is a maker in northern Minnesota, Ely, Minnesota, called Gray Duck Bag Company. And this was the first one I got. I say that. So this is what drew me to them. It has this little hook, D-ring hook, which I liked because I'll show you what I do actually. So look, there's a template for my mom for her socks sitting out of my backpack. So I go around with my Fjallraven bag, and I have a carabiner attached to the bottom strap. And what I do is I take whatever my travel work is for the day and I clip it to it. And then when you're standing up, this is just coming out right at my hip. There's actually a picture on Instagram I put on of it. And so while I'm waiting for a train or bus, I can pull out a pair of socks and just knit while I'm waiting. And it's super handy. What I also like about this is they're water resistant. So if it's snowing or raining, I don't have to worry about my yarn getting wet. And I just love the black and white polka dots. So I got this and loved it. And I'd had it for a week and I was like, I need a bigger one for bigger projects. So I got one. This in the spectacles colorway, which I took a picture where I put on Instagram where I put up half one with half of mine. I thought this was so fun. This pattern and print. Gray Duck bags. I don't know if I have the tag anymore, but I think you can just go, I'm going to quick look it up because I want to make sure you have the right link. And I also, and this is another thing I am going to put a link to in the show notes along with the forest fiber arts. Yep, grayduckbags.com. And if people are wondering what's with Gray Duck, so that's a Minnesota thing. It's a regionalism. So when I was growing up, you know the game Duck, Duck, Goose? We don't call it Duck, Duck, Goose here. Here it's Duck, Duck, Gray Duck, which is what I grew up knowing it as. So it was really strange the first time I was talking to people from somewhere else and they were like, oh yeah, Duck, Duck, Goose. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, it's Duck, Duck, Gray Duck. And it's a big thing people go back and forth about, and it's kind of fun to fake argue with people, but it's Duck, Duck, Gray Duck, folks. Okay, so Gray Duck bags, you should go, and they give 3% of their proceeds to a local community resource center that benefits young people in their area, I believe. I haven't done a lot of research on what that is about, but the information is on their website. And I love their bags. I'm sure I will buy more in the future, but they're just really sturdy and I like them. So yeah, I'm glad I got those. They're great for transit and public transportation. So let's see. That's it. That's all I have. That's my acquisitions and works in progress. And I'm at like the 57-minute mark. I don't know how much editing I'll do. We'll see. But thank you, everyone. If you came here and you watched, thanks. If you want, subscribe if you liked it. Leave a note. A nice note. Let's be kind. And yeah, I'll put links to some of the resources I shared in the comment box. And yeah. Okay, be well, everybody. Be good to yourselves.